Hey guys, how's it going? I appreciate your time. So therefore this video will be jam-packed full of hot tips to make sure that you get rid of all your errors in the right way using best SEO practices. So overall, before we start, you guys are probably wondering how I established this lucrative 0 errors in my Google Search Console, so my website is error free. I'll explain to you exactly how I did this, and I'll go through the 8 different errors that Google Search Console has pinged at the moment and that they flag with current websites. And as new errors come out, I'll definitely make sure to, if new errors come out, I'll definitely make sure to update this video. But overall, let's jump into it. So these are the 8 different errors that Google currently flags. So you have the server error, which is 500 error. You have the redirect error. You have the submitted URL is blocked by robots.txt, submitted URL no index, soft 404, unauthorized request, which is a 401 error. You have the classic 404 not found, and you have crawl issues. So before we start, I strongly recommend that you download a Chrome extension if you guys are using Chrome, because this will save you. It's a free Chrome extension called Redirect Path. So what this Chrome extension enables you to do, enables you to look at redirects, redirect chains, and understand the different status codes that your URLs are firing. So I'll be putting in the description down below the exact URL so you can quickly download this, and we'll be able to get on this and smash out these errors as soon as we can. So who's ready? So moving on, we have the first error, the 500 error. So you may be thinking, what is a 500 error and what does it do? So a 500 error is essentially an error with the server that is hosting your particular URL. So this error may affect your entire site, or it may affect one URL, and it depends on the scale of the situation. It may be a temporary problem where Google has pinged it but then it disappeared. But if the error is continuous, like let's just say hypothetically if there's an error here that was continually read, being a server error, that's something you'd have to explore and look into. So first of all, what you would do is hypothetically, let's just say under the error section you have that 500 error coming up. What you would do is you have 2 options. Option number 1 would be pinging the URL. So in that case, you would open up your trusty browser, you'd plug in your URL into your browser, and you'd use our tool, the redirect tool that you've downloaded, and what you would do is you would plug it. So what that does is basically shows a 200 status. So that means that the status is 200, means there's no problem with it. But in this case, let's just say in this example of a 404, instead of a 404 it would come up as a 500. It would have the same red exclamation mark, except it would say 500, this page contains a server error, or this page has a server error. So this basically, that's the first way of identifying whether the error is still present. The second choice would be to go to our beautiful Google Search Console tool. You'd go on the URL inspection. Let's say hypothetically it's happening on my FAQ page. I'd plug in the FAQ URL into the inspection tool, and then I would click the button on the top right hand corner saying test live URL. And then if there was a 500 error still coming up for Google Search Console as well, instead of this awesome green tick, it would have a big bad cross. And then that cross would basically be stating that there's a 500 error. So in this case, you'd be like, what do I do? So you would have to log in to your WordPress, if you're using WordPress, or any other CMS system that you have. You would log into the back end, and you'd be using a particular type of plugin to help you along your way and solve out your problem. So let's just quickly jump in and let's see if we can get that going for you. So we have our system here. We'll jump into it. So let's log in. So we've already logged into our WordPress backend. And in this case, what I would do is I would be going to my tools, and I've downloaded a free plugin called redirection. So what that enables me to do is to create 301 redirects. So that would be the best course of action to deal with this. So a 301 redirect is a permanent redirect that would pass all the value with that page that generates a 500 error, and I'd redirect it to a live page that has a 200 status code that has no problems. So I'll give you a quick little pro tip of how to do it. So let's just say hypothetically we have redirection. You would open it up and then what you would do is you'd plug in the URL that has 500 error here, and then the target URL that you would be wanting to redirect to. So this target URL would essentially be the URL that would be the page you want it to go to. So that would be the 200 status code page. The live page has no problems, and you want that page to be something that is closely matched to the original page that's generating the 500 error, or you can redirect it to the home page. It depends on what the page is. But overall, it's the best course of action. Then once you've done this redirection, what you would do is to go back to our coverage errors, and then you could validate the error after a day or two, or validate it immediately when it's done, and then you would move on from there. And then over time this error would disappear. So moving on to the next one, a redirection error. So we just spoke about using a 301 redirect, but a redirection error occurs when a URL that you've submitted essentially has a very long redirect chain. So I'll give you a perfect example of what the redirect chain is. So you have one page that redirects to another, that redirects to another. So in this case, you've submitted a URL that has more than 4 redirects in the chain. So after the 4th URL that's been redirected, so you go 1, 2, 3, 4, the Google bot itself wouldn't go past URL number 4 to get to the final destination. And that's exactly when Google would ping you as it's crawling its page. And then if you're using a browser, you've probably experienced this from time to time. Sometimes browsers tend to time out when you hit a redirect loop. So that's after the 5th page. If you're using Chrome, Firefox, or Internet Explorer, after the 5th URL, it would time out, ping out, and say, no, I'm not doing it. And this isn't ideal for SEO because it wastes crawl budget. When Google crawls your page, it creates a negative user experience. It could harm your rankings and your visibility and even your conversion rate, depending on what page it is. So it's definitely not ideal. So how would you go about tackling such an issue? What you would do in this circumstance is you'd go and try to figure out how to cut out the largest amount of URLs in the middle. So example, if you have first URL, second, third, fourth, we try and cut out URL number 2 and 3 in that chain, so it shortens the amount of jumps that the browser and that Google bot has to do to get to that final page. And if we're using our trusty redirect tool here, I have a wonderful screenshot that should be here that shows you a perfect example of how a 301 redirect chain looks like. So it goes from 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in this case, this is an image and there's a scroll bar, so definitely there's more than 4 redirects in this image, but it's a perfect example of what you would look, how it looks like and what it looks like when you're trying to understand how this issue is affecting your particular URL or URLs that Google has identified. So once again, what I would do is, let's just say I would export everything that is generating a 301 redirect chain. I'd go to our trusty tool. I'd plug in the URL at the beginning, so at start of the chain here, and I'll try and find a way to remove all of those other URLs in that chain. So example, instead of having it to go from one page to another, I'd basically try and get that first page to redirect to the last page that I want it to go. So example, from URL 1 to the 4th URL in that chain, I'd cut out the 2nd and 3rd and be like, okay, this is the first page that starts the chain and this is the final page in that chain, so let's just make it that we redirect that first URL to the last one, and it cuts out the 2 middle pages. So using our awesome little visual here, we'll just want that page to go from here to here, we don't want to go here, here, and here. So we want to go from 1 to 4 instead of 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Make sense? Awesome. If it doesn't make sense, please pop in a comment below. More than happy to help you guys out if you have any other issues. So moving on to submitted URL blocked by robots.txt. So what does that mean? So basically, I'll quickly explain to you what a robots.txt is. A robots.txt file is essentially a file which is the first file that Googlebot crawls when going to your website, and it tells Google what files it should crawl and what files it shouldn't crawl, because if a Googlebot crawls files, it will eventually index them, and as they're indexed, they become visible in search results, and it could be certain files that you don't want to be indexed. So I'll quickly explain to you how to access this robots.txt file. So the way you access the robots.txt file would be you plug in this case, the URL of your main website, so the homepage, /robots.txt. Now this is generally the universal approach to accessing a robots.txt file. And when you open it, it usually looks a little similar like this. It may be longer if you have many other files that are being blocked, but this is just a very succinct and clean version. Also, additional bonus tip, it's very useful to plug in your sitemap in your robots.txt file, because since it's the first place that Google crawls, it enables Google to crawl your website more effectively and more efficiently. So hit like if you like that little tip. So moving along, you got the user agent. So the user agent basically means the bots. So if you have a user agent with an asterisk or wildcard, means that you allow all your bots, all of the bots to call your site. This could be Bing, this could be Google, etc. But we're more interested in the disallow command. So what a disallow command is a command that tells Google do not crawl this particular page, file path or page, but basically there's a file path. So in this circumstance, I don't want Google to crawl anything under my WordPress admin section. But funny enough, the error isn't here. But if I go into here, it doesn't come up. Sometimes it will say blocked by robots.txt excluded. So what that means is that I've blocked the page from the robots.txt, but I haven't actually submitted it to Google. So therefore the page doesn't exist in my sitemap, because in your XML sitemap, so we just go back to the robots.txt file. Yeah, apologies. Here, so if you have your robots.txt file, your XML sitemap file in your robots.txt, Google tends to crawl it. So if I hypothetically include my WP admin URL into my robots.txt file, I'm going to get that error issue here. That's going to come up, it's going to flag me. So the whole purpose of this experiment is basically to tell Google to not include any URLs that you've purposely blocked from robots.txt. But let's say hypothetically there are URLs that you've blocked from there are URLs that you are blocking using robots.txt, but you've had a bit of a deeper dive and you've realized that there are some URLs that you want to actually be indexed. So what you would do is you would actually remove this disallow command, and you can do that using Ghost if you're using WordPress. Or you can go to your administration settings for your different CMS systems, aka content management systems such as Squarespace, Wix, whatever. You would remove it, and instead you would identify the individual URLs that you want blocked using a meta noindex tag. But I'll quickly explain to you what a meta noindex tag is later on. But the best way to tackle this issue is either remove the disallow command or apply a noindex tag on specific URLs that you want to be blocked under the same file path, or your last option is just to not submit that URL to Google Search Console. If it's not submitted, it will just end up under the excluded section instead of an error. So moving on to noindex tags. So the whole purpose of a noindex tag is it's supposed to not be indexed in search results. So it's a piece of HTML that is put in the page, and it tells Google, hey, this is a page I don't want indexed. So it's kind of like the robots.txt file. But what you do is you put it on an individual page instead of on a page path basis or URL basis. So in this case, what I would do is, perfect example is I've excluded a URL using the noindex tag here, but I haven't submitted it to Google in my sitemap. So this is why it hasn't actually been flagged as an error, and it's only flagged as excluded. So if you have the noindex URL in your sitemap, remove it from the sitemap and then resubmit your sitemap here, and then it will be fine. The error will disappear over time. Or what you would do as your last choice would be to simply remove your noindex tag, the HTML code from that page if you want it to be re-indexed. And then this error will also disappear over time after you validate it. So you should be asking, how do I find my noindex tag? So this is an example of a page that has a noindex tag. So the way you do it is you go into view page source if you're using Chrome, and then you would find noindex by going Control F, and it opens up this little search box, and then you look for this piece of code: meta name equals robots content equals noindex. So in this case, you just want to remove that code if you want that page to be re-indexed. So hopefully that helps. So you have to quickly sum up, you have a few choices. Choice 1 is to remove any URLs from your XML sitemap that are noindexed, or choice 2 is to simply remove the noindex tag. And then if you remove the noindex tag, over time Google will call your site, and then this error will disappear and it goes down to 0. Or if you do end up keeping the noindex tag and you remove it from the XML sitemap, you will end up with an excluded noindex tag here. So moving on, URL submitted seems to be a soft 404. So what that means is that the URL itself, when you click onto it, usually the page will look a bit funny. Maybe it look like a default 404, maybe the content will be a bit blank or thin, and instead of generating a 404, it generates a 200 status. But from the naked eye, if you look at the page, it just looks fine. So what you have to do is you have to plug in our trusty redirect path tool, and I'll give you a quick example of a 404. I think I just had it here. So in this case, imagine if the page itself looked exactly like this page 404 not found, except instead of a 404, it will come up as a 200 as the page being okay. And that's supposed to basically be incorrect in this case. It's supposed to be a 404 if it's a 404. So sometimes Google will ping that page once and it will temporarily come up as a soft 404 and then it disappears. That tends to be the case. Or if it is a page that looks like a 404 and it just looks really funny, the best practice would be to redirect your soft 404s using a 301 redirect. So it'd be the same situation as here. Plug in URL soft 404 here, and then plug in the target URL at the bottom, so the page that you would want it to redirect to. That's the best course of action for dealing with soft 404s. However, once again, if the page that is generating soft 404 isn't irritating you, it doesn't create any major issues, and it isn't included in the XML sitemap, it will end up something like this, where it will end up under the excluded section, so it doesn't actually come up as an error, and it just comes up as a soft 404. So in this case, there's a few pages here that come up with a soft 404 that I can choose to 301 redirect at my own disclosure if need be. But these pages are all just strange thin content pages that were generated by default in my WordPress CMS system. But that just gives you an idea of what happens when you can have soft 404s but you have 0 errors showing up. So now moving on, 401 request, unauthorized request. So Googlebot loves having as much access to your website as possible, so it understands your website to the best of its ability. Certain circumstances, there may be some plugins or some authorizations that are blocking robots, not blocking robots, blocking their robot, aka the Googlebot, from accessing the page correctly. So there's two approaches of going about this again. Approach number one would be to go for your URL inspection tool, plug in the URL that's creating the problem, hypothetically it's the FAQ page again, and then you'd go to testing the live URL, see what happens. And let's just say if that error keeps coming up but you're not sure what's happening, check your plugins, update your plugins. If you had a web developer doing any work to your page, ask them what they've done, because maybe it's a simple code or some type of plugin or adjustment that's causing the error. Or give it a few days and try and revalidate the page again. Or if the page has no SEO value, you've tried to revalidate it, you have no idea what's going on, try to use a free one redirect and redirect it to a separate page using our trusty redirection plugin. Same process. Yeah. So software 4, you plug in the page that it's 401 error, and then you try and target the redirect here to the target URL that you want the page to go to. So 404 not found, so that's pretty much the same tactic as for software 4. What you would do is you'd search here, once again inspect the URL, try and validate the URL, and if there is a problem with it, you would look it up, and if this page is, if the plugin itself would be also creating a 404 like this page here, simply go and export all of your 404s, and then basically figure out what pages they are, figure out the best pages to redirect the user to, apply through on redirect. Please do not create a redirect chain error. As previously stated, trying to redirect from one page going to another instead of going from one page to another page to another page. We don't want to get that error again. So in this case, you'd plug in the 404 error page here, and then you would find the target URL that you want it to go to, and then you would provide that redirect. And then after that redirect is done, you would sense check it with our beautiful little plugin tool. You would sense check it here. You would try to revalidate the error over a day or two. Google would come back and call it. Eventually the error would disappear. So moving on to the final one, submit URL has crawl issue. So basically what this tells you is that Google hasn't compartmented that particular URL into the previous 7 errors that have been identified. It's just an error for the sake of an error, and it's unspecified. But the best way to do it would be to debug the URL. So in this case, what I'll do is simply plug it into the URL inspection tool. I'll try and validate the page again and see what happens over a few days. Because traditionally, in this case, it normally pings for a day or two and then it just disappears, in my personal experience. However, if it's a consistent issue and the page isn't really an important page for SEO purposes or anything of that manner, it was a page that was created maybe for a test, it's very simple just to redirect it, and we can just go back here. If you're using WordPress, plug in the page in the source URL that is basically creating an error and redirect it to the page that you want it to go to. So page that is flagged here with error, and then plug it into the target URL. And then once again you would create these 3-1 redirects if that's the case, and you would check it out, see if it fires, see if everything is redirected correctly. So to sum up, very top line overview with the 500 errors, best course of action is for redirects, specifically a 3-1 redirect. For the redirect error chain, issue number 2 would be to cut out the redirects in that chain, so it just goes from one page to another using 3-1 redirects as well, but it would cut out the middle pages, so it shortens the chain to 3 pages or less, ideally 2, so that Google doesn't come up with any errors. With your robots.txt, once again check the files, check the disallow command that you've included, Make sure that you aren't accidentally blocking anything that you shouldn't be blocking, and if you are blocking something, that's fine, leave it. Just remove the URL from your XML sitemap so it comes up as excluded in this section. With your no index tag, if you're happy with your page being no indexed, please remove it from the sitemap and it will end up under the excluded section like it does here. With your soft 404s, just ping them after a day or two using the URL inspection tool, validate them, and if an error is coming up over the next few days or so, apply further on redirect. With the request, speak to your developers, test your plugins, make sure there's no issues going on from that manner. Overall, try and aim to be patient with this error, because I know it's happened to a few people in the past and it disappears. So once you get it, don't freak out. Test it with your URL inspection. Ask your web dev if he's done any work, web developer, see if he's done any work on your page, test your plugins. If the error is consistent and doesn't go away, try, if it's not an important page, try and just free on redirect it. With the 404 pages, redirect them as well, free on redirect them to a more active and suitable page. And with your URLs, basically for the final one of the URLs submitted, crawl issue, validate them. Once again, if there are no problems, fair on redirect them. So overall, I really hope this video has been helpful. Apologies, I know it's been about half an hour or so of you sitting here and listening to this advice, but trust me, this advice works. I'm living proof of it by having 0 errors, and as you can see here, 0 errors. And for some of the ones I've been excluded, specifically with the soft 404s, the no index or colon anomalies, stuff like that, it shows that my advice works, it's tried and true. And if you like this content, if you want more SEO and Google Search Console content, please make sure to like, subscribe, and provide any feedback, because I will be reading all the comments. And once again, thank you so much for your time, and you'll be hearing from me very shortly. See you guys.